What's up guys, Akariss here, bringing you another Fire Emblem Heroes video. Now normally I actually haven't done news coverage in probably a long time since I mostly delegated to Twitter, but this particular update is worth talking about and therefore you guys get a video with my opinion and definitely things to look forward to. So there is a bunch of meat on the table here and I am pretty excited about it. Hopefully you are as well. Let's go over it. Enjoy guys. Alright guys, so welcome to the news update notification video where we're going to cover everything coming up in the next update of Heroes. I haven't done this in literally years, but it is warranted for the next update. So here's the TLDR of it, which is basically we're getting Divine Codes Part 2. Yes, yes, yes. Finally. That makes me very happy because I feel like the next set of codes will be very impactful. We'll go over that in just a moment, but I want to make sure we cover everything. So Divine Codes Part 2, Tempest Trials, Aether Raids, Friends Cap Increase, yes. And of course, the Ephemera coming up next month is also interesting, plus Weapon Refines. So there's actually, and every little bit has something interesting to talk about. We'll go over it one by one. First up is Divine Codes Part 2. Now, I've been talking about this a lot on my Twitch and maybe even in some of the videos. I covered Divine Codes itself over last year, I believe, like which paths you should take. So definitely go check out my guides and find that video from last year. It's still relevant. That type of fodder, there's definitely a way you can look at it and which paths you should take depending on your goals in the game. But I'm going to cover when this comes out. Once we know what these paths are, I'll definitely make a video as well for part 2 and what I feel is the best amount of fodder you can get from there. So this is really exciting. But if you didn't remember exactly what was on there, I have them listed on the left here, and just kind of like the TLDR of it is Path of Radiance was like by far the most amount of fodder. I really like that one. We got like Disarm, Trap, and Fort Defense Res from Mystery Shadows. And of course, Close Counter, Blue Flame, and No Follow-Up from Fates. Those are like the best 3 paths if you're still kind of undecided or holding your codes. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the next set of codes, they're not like transferable. If you've been hoarding, it doesn't really matter. Like you basically will not be able to use your codes that you've been saving now into the next paths. I kind of expected this, and they also state that you will basically use part 2 codes to supplement for part 1 codes. So if you wanted to go back and finish like Holy War here, you would be using part 2 codes, since everything that gives codes now will just be replaced by the part 2 codes. Now I feel like likely the fodder will get better. I feel like we'll get stuff like low attack defense, low speed, speed defense, like basically a bunch of lulls. Those are coming up. They've been on tons of units. We'll probably see maybe ARD skills and just better fodder in general, because the later in the game we've gone, the better the actual fodder has come on units. So I feel like we have some really good stuff coming, and that makes me very excited for sure. In fact, they even tease that we're going to get 3 houses coming up as well as a sort of path, and that's also crazy because like 3 house units, pretty much all of them except Hubert had something there to talk about. So this is huge, and I'll definitely be covering it when the time comes. If you're not sure, don't use your codes yet, just to see what the second set provides, and therefore you can kind of like, you know, say, okay, I see what the second set are, and I need this particular fodder from the first set because the second set has something really easy to get. For example, let's say Distant Counter is at the end of the Sacred Stones path here in the first set, but Distant Counter ends up like in the middle of the next set of codes. So like, you know, oh, I shouldn't commit to that path, and therefore you'd choose something else. There's just something to think about. Definitely wait until the update and see what we get, because this is very exciting. Okay, moving on, we have Tempest Trials, and Tempest Trials is, I believe this is just like a way to help people get all the rewards as soon as possible, which will obviously inflate the rank cutoffs, because now everyone gets more score, but realistically, this is, like, since this applies to everyone, it's whatever. I feel like technically, based on what I'm reading here, it's the higher difficulties you can do, the more bonus score you get. So I guess this might benefit people who are able to auto battle or play the harder modes with a slight benefit to that. That's all I can really take away from it. I'm just whatever on this. If you've been playing Tempest Trials to get rewards, this won't really affect you except to get it faster. If you've been playing it for ranks, you may want to make sure you're tackling the harder difficulties. That's all I can kind of infer from this, but not really much more to say about it, so let's move on. Okay, so the next thing coming up is Aether Raids being added with an additional tier. This is good because you get more rewards. Simple as that, really. I mean, I can't really... Why would this be bad? There wouldn't be a reason why this is bad. It's just another tier, so that means additional grails, maybe stones, and whatever rewards. So to me, this is just, okay, cool, we get more rewards. Nothing really else to really say about that, so cool. I mean, 38 was the point you wanted to reach for anyways, because you wanted to stay in Vault of Heaven, so the next tier would be easier, but 39 is just an extra tier and more rewards. This might imply that we might get more tiers later, like tier 40 or tier 41, I believe, as high as it can get. And that's cool as well. More grail, like I said, more grails. Grail income has been very slow, very, very slow. We've been getting it at a rate that just isn't very comfy. So, okay. They're also adding an auto create feature. So I'm guessing if you're like new to the game, this will be able to kind of optimize your raiding parties and make sure that people are using mythics. I guess this is good, but if you've been playing competitively anyways, it shouldn't matter to you. Healing towers being upgraded, we expected this. This is good for defense, not so much for offense, but for defense this is pretty good, especially if you run a very bulky team and can properly protect your defense. At the bottom here, we see that friends are being upgraded from 100 to 150. This is a great change for me and should be for many people who want to do Pawns of Loki or just other friend game modes in general. You know, Legion's Battles, I believe, uses it, and Rival Domains, I guess, and Grand Conquest. That's about it, but it's definitely more relevant now than it was before, and I am personally very happy to be able to add more people to my friends list, because a lot of people have been asking, and it feels kind of bad to not be able to add everyone. If we just had like a 500 friends list, you know, increase, that would just be amazing. As a content creator, I just want to add everyone, because I just want to share the love, I guess. Moving on, and here is where things get very interesting, folks. Now, at first impression, this just looked like, oh, it's just a new set of monthly codes. Okay, cool. But if you looked carefully, that 4-star manual there is an Eldigan, a Tempest Trials unit, not regular, just a regular 4-star. That is crazy. And the reason that is crazy is because we have no rerun on Tempest Trial stuff, like ever. We've never really had this. Well, we had rerun Tempest Trials for like events and such, but we've never been able to get like a rerun or an extra copy of them ever. And that's insane, because now that could effectively, if this precedent keeps happening every month, this could effectively lower the total cost of grails. So just to show you a reference, a chart on the left here, which we got from the Gamepedia website. Normally, a Tempest Trials unit, any Tempest Trials unit without any event or extra copy, would cost 2,700 grails, because you would need to get their copy 9 times, plus 1 from the 2 initial from Tempest Trials. Because of Eldigan showing up here, it sets a precedent that maybe our Tempest Trials units could now officially get an extra copy through the Ephemera system. And that reduces the total cost to 2,200 grails per Tempest Trials units. A GHB unit, for reference, goes to about 1,750, and if there's a party event, it's 1,350. So GHBs have always traditionally been very very cheap. GHB units have been very cheap to make, and that's why I was like recommending Cowlick over Ninja Hannah, for example, because you literally get Cowlick 2+10 for half the grail cost, even if he might not have performed as well as Hannah. But that's debatable because they're both really good. Now we have a case of Eldigan saying, hey, I'm a good unit, but on top of that, I'm a Tempest Trials unit and a recent Tempest Trials unit. So now maybe Ninja Hannah could end up being 2,200 grails instead of 2,700 grails. This would make me very hesitant to +10 a Tempest Trials unit now, because in the next months to come, we're going to watch carefully where exactly they intend to do this. So that's huge, and I'm definitely going to be picking that up 100%. To be honest, I mean, Morgan and Marissa here, just whatever. Like, that's Flyer Guidance, Speed Defense Link, which comes off Norn, some Lance that's not really that good, and we have Guard and Attack Ploy, I believe, from Morgan, so, or Serpent. It's the 5 stars are not that appealing. I would definitely skip one of them in favor of Eldigan here. That's an easy pickup, and that sets a really nice precedent for later months. All right, next up, we got weapon refines. Now, again, you would probably look at this and be like, oh, just the next set of refines. Okay, cool. Ira finally, Ishtar, cool. We had Lewin, so yeah, whatever. Leon, GHB, La Rochelle. Okay, cool. And then there's the Halloween Nowi. Okay, what? No one. I didn't even expect seasonals to get weapon refines. I thought they would just kind of be skipped, because if we would have had seasonal refines, we probably should have already had seasonal refines on some of the early seasonals, like Spring Crom, who's pretty irrelevant at this point, or even Spring Lucina, who's also fairly irrelevant. It just completely outclasses characters, units, stats, skills, whatever. You can't even make them that much viable compared to the alternative options. But Nowi is a preference weapon, and what is interesting here is she's the first seasonal, other than P.A. Azura, who's a dancer, and no dancer's got to refine, with a preference seasonal weapon. So what I did was I went and take a look at who could potentially be coming up as getting seasonal refines, and here's what I found out. So we have Berserk Armads, which is basically right after Nowi in Valentine's time, and that weapon is on OG Hector. So if that seasonal weapon gets refined, OG Hector gets a refine, and of course LA Hector, which could be really good, depending on what they do with these refines. That would be one for sure. Spring Catria, who is a recent Forma unit, so if you are thinking about getting Spring Catria as a Forma, she could very well get a refine now on her egg. Although I feel like, just a quick say, I feel like that particular movement class weapon type is pretty competitive now, especially with La Rochelle, Reinhardt, even Resplendent Olwen. It's hard for me to say that something like Catria could end up being meta relevant, but it's still interesting that this may now happen. Spring Sharena also having a preference weapon. These are like debuff weapons, so maybe they could be similar to something like Valflame or Sias's War God Tome, and something. Maybe they do something like that. I don't know, but just interesting to think about. Then there was like the bridal set of units, which had Sanaki and I believe Tharja. So both of them had like these kind of owl-ish tomes. Not like honestly, the early weapon refines for seasonals, the preference ones, were very underwhelming. It was still pretty early in the game. If anything, the most interesting one, and it could happen pretty much next month, would be something like Berserk Armads. And at that point, they might as well just refine OG Armads, because that's not even a distant counter weapon. It's just on a distant counter dude. So I'd expect both Armads could possibly get refined at the same time as early as next month. So that's very, very cool that we're finally getting some stuff. But this also could open the potential for just OG seasonal units, characters getting refines. Summer Xander, let's go, man. Because he's been benched for a while now, and it's kind of been sad. So maybe your Spring Croms, maybe your Summer Xanders, maybe your Summer Corins will get weapon refines. We will see. We will see. Okay, and finally, I guess the end here is Mjolnir Strike now has 2 days in the shield phase. I feel this was an overdue change, thankfully, because a lot of people couldn't play within that one day and forgot to do it. And I've been pretty close myself to forgetting to doing it. There isn't that much like notification. It's kind of hidden there in the events tab. Oh yeah, it's been kind of fun to use a summoner, I guess, but it's still the same game mode at the end of the day with a bigger map. And finally, of course, Heroic Grails. So guys, that pretty much sums up everything, my whole take on these, on this next set of news. Honestly, it felt like as much changes that we would get in like a Fed channel, but without the Fed channel. So this is very exciting. I believe we would have another Fed channel in April anyways. So if this is what they're doing in like an off month, then what are they going to do during one of the core months? Since the anniversary has happened, I feel like they really amped up a lot of quality of life changes, just some of these little subtle improvements to the game, and we've covered them in this video, so I'm very happy myself with what's to come and excited as well. So what do you guys think? Feel free to let me know in the comments. Of course, give the video a thumbs up if you haven't already. Thank you so much for that support, guys. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys maybe on Twitch, Discord. Thank you guys. See you in the next one. Peace.